L'appel du vide. Um, I'll start with a quote from my close friend Mark Yozart. He says, "People are capable of flight. Landing is the issue." Acrophobia applies to people with, according to the APA, extreme, irrational, and persistent fears of heights and situations associated with them. Now, I've often been confused by this for myself. Flying doesn't scare me. I've tried skydiving more than once, and it was a little a little scary. But I went back and did it again, and this was before tandem jumping. I did it, solo. Although tandem jumping is a pretty good name for an acoustic duo. Um, Clear-walled elevators are a little scary, but more exciting than palm sweating. Balconies, however, on like the 23rd floor, pit of the stomach, lightheaded, get me out of here scary. I mean, just shaky scary. So, l'appel de vide is a French phrase which means sort of approximately the call of the void, the urge to jump. But it captures this thing I'm talking about, and I've talked to other people who feel the same way. So it's not just me, good, bad, or otherwise. I'm not afraid of heights. I am afraid of this command, this overpowering urge to jump. For some of us, that urge is vague or even absent. I know lots of people who, on the 23rd floor, will go right over to the balcony, which only comes up to about your sternum, and just lean over and look down and go, "Well, yeah, look what they're eating and stuff." That's mystifying for me. Why would you even want to do that? Because the closer I get to the balcony, the more I feel l'appel de vide, the urge to jump. It's not a made up thing. I've read articles about it, all the neuroscience and such. And apparently, it may be a kind of short circuited survival thing. Um, let's suppose, though, that our best research and our data driven efforts to rationally explain something which is irrational are not much use to regular folks like you and me, especially those of us who experience this magnetic appel du vide. Now, Thomas Hobbes, a rapid switch in topic here, you know me, suggested that we humans have no default setting for morality. We simply see things we want as good and things we don't want as evil. I don't buy that argument myself, but in times of anxiety, like withdrawal for an addict, our our mind, I think, tends to narrow to a laser-like focus on feeling better, no matter what it takes, feeling better. So when confronted by the void, the vide, excuse me, some of us have a peculiar wiring that is desperate for the evil, in this case, fear of falling, not falling itself, but the fear to go away. Voila. Jumping gets rid of that evil. Whether we're talking about falling or addiction or uncomfortable thinking or a situation which makes us feel squirrely, jumping gets rid of it directly and it gets rid of it quickly. And like an addict, all other consequences disappear. So Bob Johansen, the author of a book called Full Spectrum Thinking, says the future will reward clarity and punish certainty. We all have a choice, I think, I know I do, to frame our choices as binary, either or. Either I'm loved or I'm not. Either I'm happy or I'm not. Either I'm wealthy or I'm not. In a kind of a strange circuit of a sort of surreal and bizarre impulsiveness, jumping clears away discomfort. If we can use one or the other as a model, we don't have to risk the toil of possibility, right? I feel uncomfortable. I'm going to do something about it and make the discomfort go away. So is there a sort of inherent pathway to poor thinking built into our fear of ambiguity. Okay. Now, I work with the recovery community. I know that one of the behaviors that addiction erodes is consideration for consequences. And this applies to the behavioral addiction of dictators who always discard the gray for the black and white, a sort of a societal lapel du vide. I will jump in because that avoids this discomfort of wrestling with this. And if they can make us fearful enough, we jump. This also applies to mild dictators like controlling parents, fear-driven supervisors, even scout leaders who see themselves as large and in charge. They can only succeed with our complicity, our desire to turn ourselves over to certainty. And I'm not talking politics here. I'm talking about every kind of human interaction. Bullying. If we surrender, we've traded the discomfort of self-examination for the illusion of safety. The land of us and them, either or. The void as a solution. And I have a friend named Maggie Jackson who wrote a great book called Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. And she says the best thinking begins and ends with the wisdom of being unsure. That's wisdom, to be unsure. What if the way out of this self-defeating but alluring lapel, the void, jump, is to surrender certainty and adopt ambiguity as a badge of courage? I feel ambiguity. I feel uncertain. That's okay. That's a good thing. That's the path to wisdom. That's not something I have to get rid of. My friend Steve Perlman calls this environment the security of uncertainty. Ask yourself if you have ever fled from uncertainty to denial or blame. Maybe lapel du vide provides a metaphor to explain those who deny science, for instance, or supervisors shielded by unapproachability. People who won't consider possibilities, often called contempt prior to investigation, conspiracy adherents, trolls on social media. John Kennedy said, too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. Could it be that some of us choose to jump rather than face ambiguity and discomfort of thought? When we jump to escape fear, even metaphorically, we move away from courage. What if embracing the possibility of new ideas is not a sign of weakness, but a broadcast of strength? Lapel du vide is the leap into absolutes, and that plummet lands in spiritual darkness. When we feel absolutely certain, and when that certain has a strong feeling attached, like nobody can convince me otherwise, excuse me, consider the possibility for me that I am succumbing to the whispering voice of lapel du vide. The discomfort of uncertainty is bad, I tell you. Jump, and it will end. It certainly will.